Welcome back to my Pokemon Regionlockes series. I'm playing a nuzlocke of each generation of Pokemon from Gold and Silver all the way to Scarlet and Violet using only Pokemon that were introduced in each specific generation. As an example of the Regionlock, I could use Azumarill in Pokemon Emerald since it was introduced in Generation 3, but I could not use Marill or Azumarill since they were introduced in Gen 2. I mean, I couldn't actually use Azumarill either since you have to breed one, but the point still stands. In each game I play, I can only use Pokemon introduced in that specific generation. Because I can only use Gen 4 Pokemon in this run, I only have approximately 107 Pokemon to choose from. However, a good chunk of those are legendary or mythical Pokemon that I can't use, seeing as Diamond and Pearl decided to introduce... Hold on, let's do some math here. Okay. Another trio. Best legendary ever. Man, Game Freak hates this one. 2 new Mews. Why can't we catch this one when its counterpart is an event? Can't forget this one. Oh yeah, this one isn't available to me either. No, that was just a legendary in the manga. Oh, and Pokejesus. So that's 14 legendaries and 1 Spiritomb to take off the list, giving me less than 100 Pokemon to work with. And since a ton of Pokemon introduced in Diamond and Pearl were evolutions of previous Pokemon, this Nuzlocke is going to be an interesting one. So far, I managed to barely make it over the finish line in my Regionlock, and successfully made it past my Hoenn in one attempt, and despite a plethora of deaths and aggravation caused by Double Team. But with a new region comes a new chance to have a successful Nuzlocke where my Pokemon managed to survive to the end. So let's see how I performed in my Pokemon Platinum Sinnohlocke. The rules for this run are straightforward. I can only catch the first Pokemon I encounter in a new area, items cannot be used in battle, fainted Pokemon are considered dead and can't be used in battles or for HMs. My Pokemon's levels cannot exceed the level of the next gym leader's ace Pokemon, though you'd have to be a complete moron to mess that up in this game. And of course, I can only use Pokemon that were introduced in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. We begin our new adventure by watching as our sugar-addicted best friend Glucose tries to run through the tall grass without a Pokemon. He says some crazy stuff about just running through the grass before wild Pokemon can attack, which clearly makes no logical sense, seeing as wild Pokemon can literally freeze time and force you to fight them. What an idiot Glucose is. Despite agreeing that my friend is a moron, Professor Rowan decides to give us both a partner Pokemon. While all 3 Sinnoh starters are incredible, the clear choice here is Chimchar, since I'd like to actually have a Fire-type Pokemon in this run. Sure, I can catch a Magmar at the Fuego Ironworks later on and evolve it into Magmortar, but that's a distant future, and I want to set stuff on fire in about 2 badges from now. Immediately after receiving our new Pokemon, our energetic friend decides that we need to battle. It ends up being an interesting one, as he has Piplup use Pound on the first turn, and then proceed to have it pretend to be a threat 6 turns in a row, doing absolutely nothing to my Chimchar until I take the win. I'm okay with that one, honestly. After beating Glucose, we need to go to Professor Rowan's lab in Sand Gem Town, where I finally get to nickname my Chimchar. I give it the name Andromeda, and after saying bye to Mom before I go any further, I make sure to buy some Pokeballs in the Sand Gem Mart, since I can catch Pokemon before any are given to me. With these Pokeballs, I catch Kalis the Bidoof on Route 201, and Aquila the Starly at Lake Verity. At Route 202, Dawn decides to teach us how to catch a Pokemon, not like I already have 2 that I've caught before this or anything. And in this route, I get my third encounter, a Shinx named Leo Minor. I plan on getting rid of the minor in its name once it's fully evolved into a Big Leo. Next up is Route 204, north of Jubilife City, where I encounter a Budew named Cassiopeia. No, not that Cassiopeia, that one breaks Regionlock rules. Budew is an interesting encounter in this run since I can't use it once it evolves into a Roselia, as Roselia is a Gen 3 Pokemon. But I will be allowed to use her again when she evolves into Roserade, which requires a Dawnstone. So don't expect Cassiopeia to evolve anytime soon. I'd actually like to use her in battles. I don't get any new Pokemon on Route 203, and the Orberg Gate has no eligible encounters at all, so for now, I just go to Route 207, where I can easily EV train my Pokemon in Attack against Machops and Speed against Ponyta, and I do catch Lyra the Kricketot while I'm here as well, giving me a full team of 6 before taking on Roark. I also evolve both Aquila and Andromeda, as they both evolve at the level cap of 14. This is actually another reason to pick Chimchar in a hardcore Nuzlocke, since neither Piplup nor Turtwig can evolve prior to the first gym. Speaking of the first gym, Roark's team is the same as Brock from Red and Blue, but with an extra Pokemon added. Since he starts off with a Geodude, I decide to start off the battle with Cassiopeia. She manages to easily take out Geodude using a single Mega Drain and level up for doing so. Next, Roark sends out Onix. Unfortunately, Onix actually has a decent speed stat, letting it move first and set up Stealth Rocks, though Cassiopeia responds with yet another Mega Drain one-shot. Last up is Cranidos, and this thing actually worries me a bit. Cranidos has a massive base attack stat of 125, even as a basic Pokemon, and it has access to Pursuit, which can deal massive damage if I try to switch. On top of that, all 6 of my Pokemon have pretty weak defense stats, so the best move to make here is to stay in and go for Mega Drain to do as much damage as I can. Well, only one thing to do. Not care and go for Mega Drain anyways. Okay, he did Headbutt. Hey, Penguin. Oh my god. Okay, so that clearly isn't the best outcome here. I have no idea if that crit could have knocked out Cassiopeia or not. I'm just really glad it didn't. But since Cassiopeia obviously can't stay in now, I decide to switch into Lyra, whose only job on the team is to be fodder against Cranidos, just in case. Luckily, Cranidos just uses Headbutt again, so Cassiopeia is now safe in her Pokeball, and Lyra isn't. At this point, my best option is to go for a super effective stab, so Andromeda comes out to clean up the mess I'm in. Andromeda can get knocked out by another crit, but luckily Cranidos just uses Leer after I use Mach Punch. That's a welcome change, since it does mean that even after a potion, a follow-up Mach Punch takes down Cranidos with a well-deserved crit, giving me my first badge. I really hope this isn't a sign of things to come. After taking our first badge and evolving Leo Minor into a Luxio, we move on to Floaroma Town, where we find out that these weird Team Galactic goons are causing trouble at the Valley Windworks. In that area, I get my next encounter, a Buizel named Eridanus. Since I can't move on until I fix this Team Galactic issue, I take some more time to EV train my Pokemon before taking on Galactic's commander, Mars. The fight against Mars isn't that difficult, since Leo is able to take out Zubat with a single spark, and I can switch between Aquila and Leo to get Intimidates off on her Perugly. Gotta say, I love having that pair of Pokemon available so early on. After the Intimidates, Andromeda is able to clean up the fight with some Flame Wheels and some Mach Punches. Chimchar is really looking like the best starter choice here, and I haven't even reached Gardenia yet. Since I can now make my way north on Route 205, I get access to my next encounter, a Shellos named Pyxis. Gastrodon is an incredible bulky water-type Pokemon with the same typing that Hydrogen the Swampert had in my Hoenlock after evolving, so I'm really looking forward to having her on the team. Pyxis even has a bold nature, so it'll be able to take physical hits pretty well. In the Eterna Forest, my first wild battle with an eligible encounter includes a Baniri. Sadly, this is a double battle, and Cheryl's Chansey decides to somehow kill the bunny with an Egg Bomb, so no encounter from this area. Can't say I'm that disappointed though, seeing as there's no Mega Evolutions in this game anyways. Besides, I'll be able to get another encounter in a different part of the forest later on. Upon entering Eterna City, I first take on the gym trainers to make sure I don't accidentally exceed the level cap. Like I said, only a moron does that, and I'm no moron. Aquila and Andromeda make this an easy and risk-free task, but I still don't feel ready to take on Gardenia. Instead, I head east to Route 211, where I can yet again EV train my Pokemon, and catch a Chingling, which I name Aura. Although it's a baby Pokemon that can't evolve at any point, its modest nature makes it a valuable addition to the team. Once my Pokemon are trained up, it's finally time to take on Gardenia. She leads with a Turtwig, and I of course start with Andromeda, who's about to burn this whole gym down to ashes. Except for the fact that Flame Wheel doesn't pick up the KO right away, letting Turtwig set up a Reflect. I was considering using Taunt instead, but I really assumed that Turtwig would go down immediately here. Nah well, it's just a minor inconvenience since Gardenia wastes a Super Potion on Turtwig, who goes down after back-to-back Flame Wheels anyways. Cherrim is up next, but stays in its Overcast form since Turtwig never got to set up a Sunny Day. I go for yet another Flame Wheel, but it does less than half of Cherrim's HP thanks to that Reflect. Luckily, Cherrim just wastes a turn going for a Safeguard. On the next turn, I decide to use Taunt to prevent Cherrim from trying to use Leech Seed. It goes for a Magical Leaf instead, but Andromeda shrugs it off pretty well. I've also burned enough turns for Reflect to wear off, which means that Flame Wheel now does enough damage to take down Cherrim. Gardenia then points out that the battle isn't over yet, but she couldn't be more wrong, as without her Reflect to protect her, Andromeda torches Roserade with a single Flame Wheel, quickly ending the battle and winning me my second badge. Good job with the sweep there, Andromeda. But just because we're done battling Gardenia, it doesn't mean that we're done with Eterna City. Since I can now use Cut outside of battle, I can make my way to the old chateau where I can find my next encounter, the one and only Rotom. Well, like I said before, it's only mistaken as a legendary Pokemon by Charon in the manga, so it's fair game for me to catch. And catch it I do, giving it the nickname Fornax. And yet, I'm still not done in Eterna City because I still need to perform a task before moving on. Exploring Sinnoh's underground with the Explorer Kit. What, you thought I was going to say take on Team Galactic? Those guys can wait, I've got treasures to dig up first. Nothing feels better in Platinum than going underground, banging a hammer on the wall, and finding treasures like shards, heart scales, and this fossil I'll be reviving soon. The only thing that sucks about the underground are finding these useless orbs instead of treasures, and having this giant rock fall on my head. I'd honestly never seen that trap before. Now that I've had my fun in the underground, it's time to actually move on and fight Team Galactic once again. After catching this Burmy that I'm never going to use, since I'm clearly procrastinating my upcoming battle against Team Galactic, I decided to take my first steps into Mount Coronet instead, where my next encounter is a Bronzor that I named Horologium. While here, I figured I might as well train Pyxis against Wild Geodude in the area, since I could take them out with Water Pulse or Mud Bomb for free EVs. Sadly, a Wild Geodude survives the Mud Bomb, and then proceeds to massacre my poor little Pyxis with a critical hit off a magnitude 10. I'm really mad about this one, but it is my own fault since I could have just gotten a KO by using Water Pulse instead. Sorry for my colossal error, Pyxis. Despite losing a valuable Pokemon, I don't feel deterred, and I finally go take on Galactic Commander Jupiter. Just like Mars, he has a fully evolved Pokemon in Skuntank, who has a potentially deadly move in Night Slash. Before that though, Jupiter leads with a Zubat, who Aura is easily able to take down with a single Confusion. Since Skuntank can't be hit by psychic moves, I switch to Andromeda, who resists the Night Slash. I go for Taunt to prevent Skuntank from using Screech, and end up stopping a Poison Gas instead. 2 Flame Wheels bring Skuntank down to below half HP, but he ends up healing with Citrus Berry and brings Andromeda down to 20 HP. At this point, a crit from Night Slash would KO Andromeda, and seeing as I can't afford to lose him, I switch into Cassiopeia next. But due to her low defense stat, she can't take 2 Night Slashes, so I switch into Aquila to get off an Intimidate. In hindsight, I should have switched into Aquila a couple of times before sending out Andromeda, but I can't fix that mistake now. Aquila does some damage with a wing attack, but can't stay in for another hit, so with only Eridanis able to take a Night Slash, I switch into her, and Skuntank finally gets a crit from Night Slash, taking out Eridanis in a single hit. There goes both of my water type Pokemon. Since I have a free switch now, I send Andromeda back out, who manages to finally take out Skuntank with a final Flame Wheel. Losing Eridanis sucks, but at least I managed to get through the battle without any more losses. I can also meet with Cynthia now, who gives us a Pokemon Egg. And since we can now get a bike, I can move on to Route 206, where after getting off the bike path, I can enter the tall grass to find my next encounter, a Gligar I of course named Scorpius. I can't use Scorpius until he evolves, but he'll be a useful defensive tank later on, especially since Pyxis is gone now. As it turns out, Scorpius isn't my only encounter here, since I can take the hidden entrance to the Wayward Cave and get into its lower level. Here, I get access to the powerful Earthquake TM and guarantee Gibble as my encounter. I name my little Gibble Draco, teach him to move Earthquake, and quickly evolve him into a powerful Gabite. During all of that, the egg Cynthia gave me also hatched into a Togepi named Libra, which unfortunately has the Hustle ability, so I just won't be using it in this run. On the other side of Mount Coronet, we find ourselves on Route 209. Here, I can find a male Ralts, which I capture and name Orion. I can't catch female Ralts according to my rules, since they can't evolve into Gallade. This gives me another encounter that I can't use right away, though I wouldn't want to use it in this next gym anyways. Speaking of the next gym, it's time to take on Fantina and her team of ghosts. Her lead is Duskull, and I send out Hercules, a Cranidos I revived from that fossil I found underground. Despite its massive attack stat, an Assurance leaves Duskull in the red, letting Duskull set up a future sight and then get healed by a super potion. The healing is pointless though, since Hercules just knocks out Duskull with 2 pursuits. Unfortunately, that's the only easy part of the gym battle. Fantina sends out her ace Mismagius next, since it has a super effective move in Magical Leaf. Mismagius uses Confuse Ray instead, and Hercules hits a big Assurance through Confusion, doing over half of Mismagius' HP. Sadly, she heals some of the damage with a Citrus Berry, and then proceeds to decimate Hercules with a critical hit Magical Leaf. I don't know if that crit mattered, but honestly, I'm just assuming it didn't. I tried sending out Leo and Aquila next, but neither of them can take more than 2 hits, and Leo fails to get the KO with a bite, prompting Fantina to use a Super Potion. Eventually, I get Miss Magic down to low HP again, and send out Draco. She manages to take a small amount of damage from my Psy Beam, but needs to avoid a crit from Shadow Ball, which she does successfully, allowing Draco to defeat Miss Magic with a Dragon Rage. With Haunter as the last Pokemon remaining, I switch into Andromeda since this Haunter only uses physical moves for some reason, though Andromeda gets put to sleep, confused, and hit by a critical Shadow Claw. He manages to break through and take Haunter down with a couple of Flame Wheels, ending this battle with a fiery finish. After obtaining my 3rd badge, I need to breeze past our sugar-addicted rival before I can move on to the next few areas. On Route 209, I can find Duskull, but none actually show up, so I'll be skipping my encounter on this route for now. Afterwards, I make it to the Salacian Ruins, where I decided to torture my girlfriend by asking her to try reading the unknown messages there.
Is that a V?
Yeah.
That's a weird V.
I know.
I
don't think that's what the next word is.
THU at what the f is? Sorry.
Not TH.
That looks like an H. T-O.
T-O. T-O-U.
U-G-H.
Not G.
What is that?
This is fun.
T-O-U at H. Looks like an at symbol.
It's not an at symbol. There's another letter that looks like G when it's capitalized.
P?
No. Yes, P looks just like G when it's capitalized.
Sorry, right. Q?
Not Q.
Well, that wouldn't make sense anyway. Touch. Oh,
there you go.
C?
The C.
What?
All lives touch.
Other.
All lives touch other.
Stop. This isn't fun anymore.
It's very fun, actually. That was absolutely worth all the time invested into it. Beyond here, on Route 210, I actually can't get any new encounters. The same goes for Route 215, though something much more important happens there. At the end of the route, there's a pair of ace trainers that you have to battle. The bottom trainer has a Drifblim, which I don't have many ways of damaging without Leo's bite, but Leo goes down to a couple of ominous winds. I can do damage with Draco's Dragon Rage, but since Drifblim has a huge HP stat, it ends up surviving that, and gets the Omni Boost from a 3rd Ominous Wind, meaning that I also lose Draco here since nobody can switch in safely afterwards. Ultimately, the Drifblim is taken down by Horologium, but losing both my Electric type and my Sinnoh Legendary is a massive hit to the team. Eventually, I do make my way to Veilstone City, though my first course of action here is to actually go past the city and reach Route 214, where I can catch 2 team members. For now, I can catch a guaranteed Hippopotas in the Ruin Maniac's cave, which I named Pupus. Then, on Route 214 itself, I can catch another guaranteed Pokemon, though I decided to hold off on that encounter for just a little bit. Instead, I grab a hidden Razor Fang on Route 214, allowing me to evolve Scorpius into a Gliscor, just in time to take on the gym trainers in the Veilstone Gym. But before fighting Maylene herself, it's back to Route 214 once again to get my encounter of that area, a Rhyhorn named Sculptor. Now, before the battle with Maylene, I accidentally fought a gym trainer I had originally skipped, which caused Andromeda to go past the level cap, so I won't be able to use him in this gym battle. I guess I am a moron after all. But I still have a strong defensive team that shouldn't have too much trouble taking on Maylene's fighting types. Maylene begins the battle with her Meditite, and I lead with Aura, though I immediately switch into Fornax to avoid taking damage from Fake Out. Fornax can then hit Meditite with an Ominous Wind, getting a clean one-hit KO. Next up is Machoke, and I decide to switch into Horologium on a weak Rock Tomb. I was able to buy the TM for Reflect in the Veilstone department store, which Horologium uses after Machoke wastes a turn going for Focus Energy. With my defense increased, I can safely switch into Aquila, who lands a critical hit on Wing Attack to take out the Machoke. Last up is Lucario. I know it only has access to physical moves, so I stay in with Aquila to use a Growl before I switch into Horologium just as Reflect wears off. A second Reflect here guarantees that Scorpius can come in safely and guarantee a win. Lucario's only decent move into Scorpius is a weak Metal Claw, while Scorpius knows the move Dig, allowing him to take the win against Lucario and easily win me my 4th badge. After winning against Maylene, I needed to join Dawn in a double battle against Team Galactic, where her Clefairy actually helps out a lot. After beating those goons, I accept a Porygon from an old man in Veilstone, which I named Chameleon. I also get to gift Eevee from Bede, though I'm unsure if I should evolve it into Leafeon or Glaceon. My next destination is Pastoria City, where there's a few errands I need to run. First, I once again skip past the city and go west to Route 212, where I find a Dawnstone, allowing me to evolve Orion into a Gallade. I also obtain my next encounter here, a Krogunk named Ophiuchus. Lastly, in the Great Marsh, I encounter Tangela, which runs away. That would have been helpful for the next gym, which is my next stop after some more training and evolving of my Pokemon. Since Crusher Wake is a Water-type expert, I decided to leave my newly evolved Andromeda behind for this battle. No burning down my opponents this time. Fortunately, I don't actually need Andromeda that badly anyways. Wake starts with a Gyarados, which of course goes down to a single Shockwave from Fornax. He then decides to send out his ace Floatzel, which for some reason I thought has Bite instead of Crunch, which means I accidentally risked losing Fornax to a crit here. Luckily, the crit doesn't happen, and I do some serious damage to Floatzel with another Shockwave. I didn't want to lose Fornax here, so I switched to Aquila and get an Intimidate off. Floatzel uses a Brine on the switch, which does okay damage, but would need a crit to KO next turn. Still, I don't want Aquila to get hit by an Ice Fang, so I switched to Horologium for some more Reflect action. Now with Reflect up, I take a free switch into Orion, who's able to shrug off Brine due to his naturally high special defense. And since Orion can learn Leaf Blade from the move reminder in Pastoria, Orion can sweep the rest of this battle all by himself. Great placement on that NPC, thanks for the free win, Game Freak. With 5 gym badges in my possession, I'll eventually have access to Iron Island before next gym, so on my next stream, I decided to start by finally letting Cassiopeia evolve into a Roselia. After this, the next important battle is against Cyrus in Celestic Town, a notoriously easy fight, which I lose Andromeda in, as he failed to get the KO on his last Pokemon Murkrow, who ended up getting a crit on Drillpeck. But at least I don't lose any Pokemon to my rival in the next major battle, because he sucks. After defeating said rival, I get access to Iron Island. I can't catch any new Pokemon here, but I can get a Riolu egg after making it to the end of the area. I can also get a Shiny Stone here, which I immediately use to evolve Cassiopeia into a Roserade, letting her join the party once more. This leaves me with just a gym to get through, so I sweep through the gym trainers and make my way to... Oh, you notice that the debt counter here is at 8 instead of 7? Well, that's because I lost Cassiopeia soon after she evolved to a pair of Steelix in the gym. The first used Sandstorm and Screech, and the second brought Cassiopeia to 2 HP with an Iron Tail, causing her to die to Sandstorm Chip. Yet another pointless death caused by me playing like an absolute idiot. Despite the pointless deaths tonight, I do make it to Byron, who starts the battle with his Magneton. It does outspeed my lead Pupus and hits a Flash Cannon, but Earthquake is obviously a one-hit KO on an Electric and Steel-type Pokemon. Up next is Steelix, who does damage with an Earthquake while I use Yawn. I then switch to Orion, who takes some damage coming in, but can heal with Drain Punch and take down Steelix with 3 hits. Last is Bastiodon. Though I usually wouldn't be afraid of this Pokemon, it does have Metal Burst, which returns 1.5 times damage back after it takes a hit. Since I don't think Drain Punch will OHKO despite dealing quadruple damage, I decide to instead switch into Scorpius and start a setup war. My Swords Dance against Bastiodon's Iron Defense. When I finally do attack, I use Night Slash instead of Dig, just in case Bastiodon uses Metal Burst. Naturally, I get a crit on Night Slash, and Bastiodon does use Metal Burst. But Scorpius takes it like a champ. With the chip damage from Night Slash, Scorpius can now safely go for Dig, finishing off Bastiodon and winning me my 6th gym badge. After winning the badge, Team Galactic makes their big move, setting off a bomb at Lake Valor. On my way to the lake, I encounter a Chatot on Route 213, but sadly I don't get to catch it as Horologium hits it with a critical confusion. After bullying Commander Saturn's team, it's back to Lake Verity to get rid of more galactic goons. Ultimately, this quest of hunting down Team Galactic results in me making my way to the icy routes of Sinnoh. On Route 216, I catch a Snover named Borealis. On Route 217, we add Australis the Swinub to the roster, and at the Acuity Lakefront, we catch Gemini the Sneasel. With not much else to do, I finally take on Candace in the Snow Point Gym. Her lead Sneasel gets some chip damage on Horologium, who of course starts off by setting up a Reflect. This lets me switch into Orion, who can tank an Aerial Ace thanks to said Reflect, and heal back up to full HP with a Drain Punch. Unfortunately, this leads Candace to send out her ace Frostlass. Usually, Frostlass is a pain due to its Snow Cloak ability, but luckily Candace hasn't been able to set up Hail yet. However, Candace takes some plays out of the Emerald playbook and decides it's best to start spamming double teams, as I send in Horologium to now set up a light screen. Unfortunately, Frostlass does not want to stop using double team, but Candace comes in to hit a flash cannon anyways, taking out Frostlass. Up next is Piloswine, and I decide to switch into Horologium fearing the Earthquake, letting me set up yet another Reflect. Then it's back to Orion to take out Piloswine with a Leaf. Oh, Leaf Blade wasn't enough. Well, luckily Orion survives an Earthquake and takes out Piloswine with a single Drain Punch, once again healing up to full HP. Candace's last Pokemon is Abomasnow, so that Hail is finally active. But her Wood Hammer isn't enough to take out Orion, so Orion takes the win with a couple of Drain Punches, giving me my 7th badge. With 7 badges now obtained, it's finally time to take on Team Galactic in the evil team arc of Platinum. First off, we can finally use Rock Climb to get to Lake Acuity, only to not take the time to encounter a female Snowrun. Instead, I finally catch a Duskull at the Lost Tower in Route 209, naming it Buotes. At this point, I took a break for the night, allowing me to train up my new Pokemon off-screen and evolve Australis and Buotes. Unfortunately, I couldn't evolve Gemini yet since I would need a Razor Claw to do so. But the good news is that I can get one in my next destination, Galactic's headquarters, after defeating Cyrus in a rematch. This time, the fight goes much smoother, with Sculptor and Scorpius working together to sweep his team. After picking up the Razor Claw, I can rescue the legendary Lake Trio and proceed to the top of Mount Coronet to stop Cyrus from creating a new universe or something. I don't know, maybe I'm just too young to understand Cyrus and his... Nope, Cyrus is just insane. At the top of Mount Coronet, I need to face Commanders Mars and Jupiter in a double battle alongside our sugar-rushing rival. Luckily, they both decide to treat him like a punching bag, just like I always do, letting me get through the fight while barely taking any damage on my own Pokemon. And of course, after Cyrus gets kidnapped by a shadowy Pokemon, it's time to trek into the Distortion World where I face Cyrus one last time. The beginning of the fight is easy, and I get revenge on his stupid Honchkrow, burying it under Sculptor's powerful Stone Edge. Weavile, on the other hand, ends up being an issue as I try sending in Orion against it, but Orion takes too much damage from Night Slash. Seeing no other options, I decide that it's best to sacrifice Orion here. With a heavy heart, I let Orion go down so that Phoenix may rise in his place and take that stupid Weavile down with a flamethrower. It then takes several of my Pokemon to take on Crobat, who I admittedly made really stupid switches against. At the end, Buotes was able to avoid an Air Slash flinch and take out Crobat with a Thunder Punch, though I was risking his life in the process as well. But with Cyrus finally defeated, I now need to take on the legendary Pokemon Giratina in a battle. I'm not sure if my team can handle facing off against a Pokemon so powerful and violent that it had to be banished to the Distortion World by Arceus, so I just throw a Master Ball at it. 10-year-olds should absolutely be allowed to own creatures with godlike powers. With Team Galactic now defeated once and for all, and Giratina's threat to the world pacified, it's time to make my way to Sunyshore City to finally earn that final gym badge. I'm sure that it'll be a difficult battle since Volkner is the final and strongest gym leader, right? Volkner leads with Jolteon, and I start the battle with Pupus, one of 4 ground-type Pokemon on my team. Yeah, I was being sarcastic earlier. My team is perfectly set up to counter an electric-type team. Pupus takes out Jolteon, Raichu, and Volkner's ace Electivire with 1 Earthquake each, though I don't want to keep her in any longer since she was getting low on HP. When Volkner sends out Luxray, I send out Sculptor, who barely takes any damage from Ice Fang thanks to its massive defense stat and its solid rock ability. So Sculptor is able to take out Luxray with no issues, winning me my final badge using only 4 Earthquakes. Time to finally move on to the challenge's finale. Before taking on the Elite Four, I do need to get through Victory Road, and more importantly, I need to teach Glucose that I'm the better trainer for the last time. Aquila and Scorpius team up to take him down, and I get to move on to the Elite Four challenge, which means it's time to choose my final team of 6 Pokemon that will hopefully win me the title of champion. I'm of course bringing Aquila and Scorpius with me, as well as Horologium, Sculptor, Gemini, and Buotes. Each of them was chosen to help me handle a specific Pokemon in the Elite Four, and I'm confident in their ability to go all the way. First up is Aaron, a Bug-type specialist. Up until now, Scorpius' only offensive moves were Dig and X-Scissor, but I decided to replace the latter with Aerial Ace, just for Aaron. After setting up Swords Dance, Scorpius is able to emulate Oxygen the Ninjask from my Hoenn and sweep through every single one of Aaron's weak and pathetic bugs with Aerial Ace. Well, except for Drapion, that is. Since Drapion isn't a bug type, Aerial Ace isn't super effective on it. But Dig is, so that's an easy sweep by Scorpius. Well done, buddy. Next is Bertha, a ground type trainer. For her, I decided to do some research where I learned that Horologium can actually learn to move Grass Knot. And given that the average weight of her team is somewhere around the weight of the Earth itself, I decided to teach Horologium Grass Knot, set up the classic Reflect, and 2-hit KO Bertha's Whiscash. Next is Gliscor, who barely does a thing with Fire Fang, letting Horologium get damage with Extra Sensory, and make Bertha waste a full restore, since Horologium then hits a critical Extra Sensory right afterwards for another 2-hit KO. Bertha's next Pokemon is Golem, who wastes time setting up a Sandstorm, letting Horologium pick up the 1-hit KO this time. Rhyperior then misses a Mega Horn, which lets Horologium set up a second Reflect, and take out Rhyperior with a Grass Knot on the following turn. Last up is Hippowdon, which lowers Horologium's defense with a Crunch, so after yet another Grass Knot, it's time to switch into Sculptor as the Hippo heals. Fortunately, Sculptor's Earthquake is strong enough to get one last 2-hit KO, taking down Bertha's bulky team. Third is Flint, the Fire Expert, and the Elite Four member I'm most afraid of right now. I have 2 Pokemon weak to Fire, and Sculptor can't tank all 5 of his Pokemon by herself. Flint starts off with Houndoom, and I do start with Sculptor, who takes a Dark Pulse before taking the dog down with an Earthquake. Infernape comes out next, so I switch into Aquila on the predicted Earthquake. I anticipated a Thunder Punch next, so I switched into Scorpius, but Infernape actually used Flare Blitz, which is laughably weak. So weak in fact that I know I can safely set up Swords Dance yet again, and just heal the damage I take with Roosts. And since his attack stat is now increased, Scorpius can yet again get another sweep off against Flint's entire team using Dig. I'm glad that one worked out as well as it did. Last up is Lucian, a Psychic type trainer. This means it's finally Gemini's time to shine. I used Taunt against Lucian's lead Mr. Mime to prevent him from copying Horologium's strategies, but honestly it wasn't even necessary since Night Slash just one-shot it anyways. Next is Gallade, the only Pokemon here that I don't want to keep Gemini in against. Anticipating a 4 times effective Drain Punch, I switched to Buotes, but I ended up taking a hit from Stone Edge for some reason. I then tried to use Will-O-Wisp to cripple Gallade's damage, but it of course misses. So now, this battle went from a free win to a tough fight. Since I can't keep Buotes in anymore, I send out Horologium next, and his first move is kind of obvious at this point. The Reflect lets me send in Scorpius freely here to set up a Swords Dance, and finally take out Gallade with an Aerial Ace. Scorpius also gets a clean one-shot against Espeon with Dig, but sadly he can't do much to Lucian's Bronzong, so it's time to switch into my own Horologium to set up both of my screens. This allows me to once again send out Gemini, who gets a critical hit on Night Slash thanks to his held Razor Claw I got in Victory Road. And of course, Alakazam doesn't stand a chance against Gemini, which means I've managed to get past Elite Four without a single death. With my team victorious against the Elite Four, I'm feeling extremely confident in their ability to take on Cynthia. Scorpius has been performing extremely well for the entire run, and I trained him specifically to be able to take on her ferocious Garchomp. The end of this run is so close, I can almost taste it. But we are still facing off against Cynthia, so we still need to be careful. Cynthia's first Pokemon is Spiritomb, which is notorious for having no weaknesses in this game. I lead with Gemini, hoping to get critical hits with Night Slash, which I get immediately. Unfortunately, Spiritomb survives the hit, does some damage with Ancient Power, and gets healed by a full restore. Gemini then hits a regular Night Slash, followed by a second crit Night Slash to take down the Ghost. Next is Lucario, so I decide to switch into Horologium to set up my screens. Lucario gets a crit with Aura Sphere, so Horologium is now in red HP range, though it did manage to get up both Reflect and Light Screen. But because of that crit, there's nothing else Horologium can do in the fight, and I let it go down to a second Aura Sphere, and bring in Sculptor on the free switch. Sculptor is able to tank an Aura Sphere and retaliate with an Earthquake for the KO. Cynthia's next Pokemon is Roserade, which lets me get a free switch into Aquila on a weak Energy Ball and take it out with a single Aerial Ace. Fourth is Togekiss, and since I anticipate a Shockwave, I switch into Sculptor to avoid damage. Unfortunately, I know that I need to get Gemini in to take out Togekiss, so I do let Sculptor go down to a Water Pulse. But with Gemini coming in freely, it's going to be really easy for Gemini to take down Togekiss with just a single. So I made a huge mistake in this run. Although I knew that Avalanche deals double damage if the user is damaged the turn it's used, I didn't know that Avalanche has a negative priority. This is a lesson that I'll never forget, because with Gemini going down to Togekiss, I have essentially no way of coming back in this battle now. Had I just spent more time in the underground looking for blue shards, I could have gone into this with Ice Punch on Gemini instead, which more than likely would have picked up the KO on Togekiss and given me the win over Cynthia. Instead, I need to rely on Buotes and his Thunder Punch, but he needs to deal with Air Slash flinches and goes down after just one Thunder Punch. Aquila's return isn't even enough to get the KO, which causes Togekiss to get healed up and take out Aquila, who failed to get the KO with 2 more returns. So I'm down to just Scorpius, who can finally take out Togekiss, but can't survive an Ice Beam from Cynthia's Melodic. So my own lack of easily accessible knowledge ultimately costs me this run. So if I lost the run there, where's attempt number 2? Well, the truth is that there isn't an attempt 2, at least not yet. The thing is, I don't really spend a lot of time streaming, and it took me 2 whole weeks just to get this first attempt done. And if I take another 2 weeks to do attempt 2, that's another 2 weeks that this video would have been delayed by, and I've seen it firsthand how the YouTube algorithm hates it when there's a big gap between video uploads. So I decided that I'd do something different from everyone else and end this video here with my team ultimately defeated and the run failed. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean that attempt number 2 won't happen. I'm actually really proud of how I did in this run, especially against the Elite Four at the end. And I know that I could have won had I just taken the time to teach Gemini Ice Punch instead of Avalanche. So I've made a decision that there will absolutely be an attempt 2 on my Sinnohlocke. It just won't happen until after I've played every other Regionlock first, whether I win or lose in those runs. And hopefully, with the experience I've had in this run, I'll be able to have a successful second attempt at my Sinnohlocke. And at the very least, you'll also get to see several other Nuzlockes before I return to Sinnoh. So if you'd like to see that second attempt sometime down the line, as well as my other upcoming Regionlocks, make sure to subscribe to my channel. And as always, thanks for watching.